Hello and a very warm welcome to Air Force 100, commemorating the day exactly 1 century ago when the Royal Australian Air Force officially began serving this country. A big part of today's events is the spectacular Centenary flypast involving more than 60 aircraft, including historic warbirds, the advanced fighter jet, the F-35A Lightning II, and, of course, the Roulettes. Plus, there's the parade on the grounds here at Government House in Canberra, where His Excellency, the Governor-General David Hurley, is officially presenting a new Queen's colour to the Air Force. As you may know, colours are the Defence Force's ceremonial flags or banners, and a new regimental colour is presented only on very special occasions, such as the 100th anniversary of the RAAF. Well, let's meet the woman behind the creation of the new colour, Evangelia Erturk.
My name is Evangelia Erturk, and I've been working as an embroiderer for the past 50 years, mainly with defense. I arrived with my parents in 1970. I came from Greece, and I started working at the Commonwealth of Australia clothing factory. It was like a fountain of knowledge from so many Greeks and Russian ladies working there. It's something that I love doing every day, and I cannot imagine myself retiring, actually. Good morning, ladies. How are you? Oh, this one. In the past 50 years, I have made 3 Queen's colours. How are you going? Oh, that looks lovely. Queen's Colour Air Force flag is representing the whole Australian Air Force. For the moment that we start a Queen's Colour is to draw on scale and then transfer that onto the fabric. Someone will do the Union Jack. Some will do the red kangaroo representing Air Force. It has the Southern Cross. It has the Federation Star. All around, it has the wattle representing Australia. The fringing, it's also important, with gold and dark red, which is the royal colour. Working on the Queen's Colour of Air Force and having 100 years of Air Force, I feel very humble and very honored as well. I'm looking forward to go to Canberra and see their parade and counting again how many banners and how many flags and how many Queen's Colour I've made. I don't know how many through the years, how many crowns I've embroidered.
The royal party headed out for RAAF Richmond, where the Queen presented the Air Force with new colours.
Deep down, that's something that I would love to see the Queen, simply to say thank you.
What incredible, detailed handiwork and so rich with meaning. And it's great to know that Evangelia will be here today to see her work officially presented. Well, the RAAF's Master of Ceremonies today is Wing Commander Peter Overton. Let's go to him now so he can officially open proceedings by acknowledging the custodians of the land we stand on today.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, welcome to the Consecration Parade for the Queen's Colour for the Royal Australian Air Force. I would like to acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I would like to invite Uncle Michael Bell to perform the Welcome to Country.
Your Excellencies, Chief of Air Force, Chief of Defence Force, Uncle Harry Alley, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to acknowledge my Ngunnawal elders and all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders elders here today. I would also like to acknowledge the ancestries and descendants of all the people represented here today at this gathering and pay my respects to those that have served, those that are still serving, and the families that have supported them to make up the community of the Royal Australian Air Force. Yama. It is my honour to be here today to welcome you to the traditional lands of my people, the Ngunnawal, on this very special occasion of the Queen's Colour Parade for the Centenary of the Royal Australian Air Force. As we, the Ngunnawal people, have always known, this has been our traditional lands for as far back as the spoken word can carry. We also know that it will continue to be our traditional lands of my people into the future. In acknowledging that we gather on the traditional lands of the Ngunnawal, the Royal Australian Air Force is paying respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander protocols and history of Australia. I welcome the Royal Australian Air Force, just as they have welcomed our men and women from their inception, both in times of peace and during conflict throughout their history. The Royal Australian Air Force has and continues to honour its commitment to the people of Australia, and in particular to the people of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descent, by welcoming and accepting our men and women into their ranks, from pilots such as Uncle Len Waters and David Valentine Paul DFC, to aircraft women Myrtle Harris and her sister, aircraft woman Ruby Harris, to the men of the Groote Island Airfield Guard, to Warrant Officer Uncle Harry Alley, Elder for the RAF, to Wing Commander Cheryl Neal and Flying Officer Kamara Munro, to RAF Cadet Callan Cabillo Hallier and Officer Cadet Ashlyn Radford. Then, now, always. This commitment was maintained despite the restrictions imposed by policy on Aboriginal enlistment that was in place for an extended period of the Royal Australian Air Force's history. The Royal Australian Air Force, however, chose to offer employment, opportunity and place for our people without prejudice, and continues to do so today, showing leadership with even more urgency, as demonstrated at the welcome ceremony at the Australian War Memorial to commence these celebrations, during which the Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hepfield, demonstrated again this commitment, showing the courage, respect and dignity of speaking in my Ngunnawal language. So today it is my honour, on behalf of the Ngunnawal people and in the good graces of my ancestors, to welcome all of you to Ngunnawal country. I also hope that you spend some time enjoying the beauty and attractions of my country, and I also leave you with this guidance. Leave small footprints on my country, but please leave many of them. Once again, welcome, and I hope you enjoy this occasion.
And that beautiful and powerful welcome to country was brought to us by proud Ngunnawal man Uncle Michael Bell. Earlier, we got a glimpse into the creation of the new Queen's colour, which will be presented today by the reviewing officer, the Governor-General David Hurley, on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen. As you'd imagine, it's a great honour to be chosen to receive the Queen's colour, and many Air Force personnel put their hand up to be considered for the role. But only one person can have that honour, and today it will be Flying Officer Kamara Munro.
So my career started 18 years ago as an Air Force Defence Guard. Since then, I've had the privilege of serving in places such as Timor-Leste, Pakistan and the Middle East. And in 2018, I commissioned and appointed as a Personnel Capability Officer, or PCO. Now I'm here at RAF Base Richmond, AMTDU. Hey, Jess, how you going? Hey, what's happening? Air Mobility Training and Development Unit, or AMTDU. We have engineers, we have instructors, and we collaboratively work together to train our defence personnel in air load clearances, but also facilitate aerial delivery clearances as well on behalf of Air Mobility Group.
It was indeed a royal day at Point Cook, with the visit of Her Majesty and His Royal Highness. The Queen's colour was marched on.
The opportunity to be the Queen's colour bearer for this parade is a tremendous opportunity and a responsibility, because the Queen's colour embodies our service traditions, achievements and history. But I think on the day I will be very proud. I'll be reflecting on the sacrifices that many have made to join the Air Force, but also of the next 100 years, particularly as an Indigenous Australian as well. I met Uncle Harry Alley a few years ago now, and he's an extremely humble man, and I'm very honoured to be able to share this space with him and to continue sharing our story of Indigenous heritage.
I joined the Air Force in the 5th of January 1966. My role was in the equipment branch and involved with logistics, particularly warehousing, explosive ordnance, transport, that type of thing. And that gave me a lot of self-satisfaction to know that it was a career that I was progressing in, and also being an example to people that served under me as well. When I come into the Air Force, to hear the story of Lenny Waters to me was very inspiring. Len Waters was the first Aboriginal pilot in World War II. He was indeed a hero to us, where he came from and his background, and it wasn't an easy journey, and particularly to achieve what he did. It was indeed an honour to be invited to be the inaugural Indigenous Elder of the Air Force, to help and advise from my past service on the development and careers of Indigenous people that would wish to join the Royal Australian Air Force. I believe the Air Force has been at the forefront for embracing the enlistment of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
I think it's important for Air Force to have an Indigenous elder, because that elder carries the stories and the traditions of their experience, but also it speaks to our cultural intelligence as an organisation and allows us to continue to grow in that space and encourage others to share and to carry on that legacy.
Well, Flying Officer Kumara Munro might be feeling a little nervous right now, but I'm sure he'll do the Air Force proud. It was in May 1952 that Her Majesty consented to the original colour bearing the King's cipher being presented to the RAAF as the Queen's colour, and Her Majesty's wishes were that no changes be made to the cipher until the colour wore out, and that it should be replaced with a colour bearing the cipher of the Sovereign of the day. Well, the colour, of course, did eventually wear out, so in March 1986, a new colour was presented to the Air Force bearing Queen Elizabeth's cipher. I'm going to hand it over now to Master of Ceremonies, Wing Commander Peter Overton.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Parade Warrant Officer Ken Robertson, Air Command Warrant Officer, will now take up position and call on the parade. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the parade is about to begin with the marching on of the Colour Escort Squadron, which will be led onto the parade ground by the Royal Australian Air Force Band.
March on, the escort squadron for the Royal Australian Air Force Centenary Parade. Escort squadron, I turn. Shut.
Bird, I turn. Shut.
Band by the sector. Escort squadron, shoulder up. Band by the sector. Escort squadron by the left. Craig. Escort squadron, hop. Escort squadron, into line. Left, top. Escort squadron, inwards. Escort squadron, order up. Escort squadron, stand out. Hey.
Bird, stand out. Hey.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all current colours of the Royal Australian Air Force will now be marched on to the parade ground. Would you please stand? Members in uniform are not required to salute.
Escort squadron, I turn. Shut.
Bird, I turn. Shut.
Escort squadron, shoulder up. March on colours, standards and banners of the Royal Australian Air Force. Escort squadron, general salute, present, up. Colours of the Royal Australian Air Force. escorts, general salute, present, up. Parade, parade a turn, chut. Parade, order, up. Parade, stand at 8.
Bird, stand at 8.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The Parade Commander, Air Commander Australia, Air Vice Marshal Joe Yavasi, will now take command of the parade.
Parade, parade a turn, chut.
Bird, a turn, shut.
Parade, standards, peace.
Bird, stand at 8.
Uncase the Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force.
Sir, colour party, attention. Colour escorts, outwards, turn. Colour escorts, on guard.
The Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force will now be uncased in preparation for marching onto the parade ground. Upon completion of the uncasing of the colour party will march into position at the centre of the parade, and the band will play the stirring music of the point of war. The point of war refers to the days when colours were taken into battle. They were positioned in the centre of the battle line, which was normally the place from which the battle was controlled. Every unit took into battle its drummers, buglers, pipers, and other musicians who might make up a band. They also doubled as stretcher bearers. Upon an attack developing, the commanding officer would order the various instruments to be beaten or blown as hard as their players could manage. The attention of the unit was drawn to the fact that the centre was threatened and the colours were in danger. This action became the centre point of the war, and the music became a rallying tune. In practice today, after colours are marched on and are in position, the band plays the stirring point of war as a salute to the colours.
Colour escorts, attention. Colour party, inwards, turn. Colour party, stand at ease.
Parade, attention.
Bird, a turn, shut.
Parade, shoulder, arms.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force will now be marched on. Members in uniform are reminded to salute for the playing of the point of war once the colour is in position, and male civilians are to remove headdress. Would you please stand?
March on the Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force. Parade, Royal salute, presents, arms.
Colour party, attention. Colour party, by the centre, quick. Colour party, about turn. Colour party, general salute, present arms.
Parade! Attention!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated.
Show the colour.
Sir.
The Queen's colour will now be slow marched across the hollow square as the band plays Highland Cathedral. The custom of showing the colour originated as a procedure performed during periods of waiting when, at the discretion of the parade commander, the colour could be shown to the parade. Today, the showing of the colour is more formal, but is still a useful method to permit the personnel on parade and spectators to view the colour. The colour bearer marches along the front of the parade with the colour at the slope and free to allow a full display of the colour.
Parade! Order! Arms! Parade! Standards! Peace!
Bird, stand up, earth.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the parade will now receive the host officer, Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, who today is accompanied by his wife, Mrs. Louise Hupfeld. Guests are reminded that a flypast will occur for the host officer's arrival. Would you please stand?
Parade! Attention!
Bird, I turn. Shut.
Parade. Shoulder. Humps. Parade. General salutes. Presents. Humps. Parade. Attention. Parade. Order. Humps. Parade. Standards. Peace.
Bird, stand, dot, earth.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the parade will now receive the Minister. Guests are reminded that a flypast will occur for the Minister's arrival. Would you please stand?
Parade. Attention.
Bird, I turn. Shut.
Parade. Order. Shoulder. Humps. Parade. General salutes. Presents. Humps. Parade. Attention. Parade. Order. Humps. Parade. Standards. Peace.
Bird, stand, dot, earth.
Thank you, Minister Chester, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency General the Honourable David Hurley, the Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, and Her Excellency Mrs Linda Hurley are about to arrive. Guests are reminded that a flypast will occur for the Royal Salute. During the Royal Salute, the colour will be lowered. The custom of lowering colours in salute was officially recognised in the earliest form of King's Regulations of 1786, and in 1837, a definite instruction was added to read, "The Queen and other members of the royal family are to be saluted by colours, standards and banners dropping." Today, the salute of lowering the colour is only made when a royal salute is given. Members in uniform are to salute for the royal salute, and male civilians are to remove headdress. Would you please stand?
Parade. Attention.
Bird, I turn. Shut.
Parade. Shoulder. Humps. Parade. Royal salutes. Presents.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. The new Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force will now be consecrated, blessed and dedicated by the Principal Air Chaplains. The colour will then be presented to the new Queen's colour bearer by the Governor-General. Once presented, the colour will remain at the slope until it is marched onto the parade. This is a symbolic gesture that signifies that, although consecrated, it remains subservient to the retired colour yet to be laid up.
Chaplain, on behalf of the Royal Australian Air Force, we ask you bid God's blessing on this colour.
We gather today to consecrate, bless and dedicate this Queen's colour. It is the solemn symbol of our loyalty to our service, command and country. It is the rally point for right and held in holy reverence and care. It is a reminder of traditions and values. It is a declaration of the trust of our nation, and it is the symbol of sacred trust in our God. May this colour never be unfurled, save in the cause of justice and mercy. To the service of God, Queen and country, we dedicate ourselves. Our help comes not from the high ground, but in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth.
Parade! Trade a turn! Shut!
Bird! A turn! Shut!
Lord God, I dedicate this colour as a sign of our duty. May you be with us now as you have been this past 100 years. May you uphold our cause in bringing a lasting peace to this world, and may we covenant ourselves to the values of which this colour flies as a reminder. Amen.
I consecrate this Queen's colour in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and set it apart as a sign of our duty to our sovereign and our nation Australia. May it always remind us of the sacrifice and service of those who have gone before. Amen.
On the occasion of the Centenary of the Royal Australian Air Force, we seek your blessing on this Queen's colour, Lord. Bless, O Lord, the sacred emblem, which we bless in your name, that those who follow it will be mindful of your presence, guided by your Spirit and guarded by your providence. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Parade! Stand at eight!
Bird! Stand at eight!
Let us pray. Almighty God, under whose protection we serve, grant to us all within the Royal Australian Air Force such a measure of your grace that we may put to good account the talents you have granted us. May we rejoice in the knowledge of your love, and may we always seek your glory, the honour of our sovereign, and the good of all people. Go before those who serve under this Queen's colour in all their doings. Have mercy on our broken world and give us a keen sense of peace and justice. I pray this in the name of the one who died to bring peace. Amen.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the parade will now prepare to farewell and lay up the old colour. The colour bearer will pass the retiring Queen's colour to Chaplain Angela Stanfield. This signifies the symbolic relinquishing of the colour bearer's duty. Chaplain Stanfield will conduct a short service for the laying up of the old colour, and the replacement Queen's colour will be elevated from the slope to the carry position, signifying that it is now the new colour for the Royal Australian Air Force.
Parade, attention!
But I turn, shut.
Parade, shoulder, arms. Colour party, prepare to lay up the colour. Parade, farewell the retiring colour. Royal salutes, presents, arms.
Colour party, by the centre, slow. Colour party, halt.
Parade, attention. Parade, order, arms.
Colour escort, present, arms. Reverend Ma'am, this consecrated Queen's colour carried by the Royal Australian Air Force, I now deliver into your hands as a fitting farewell of a symbol of service to God, Queen and country.
I receive this Queen's colour for laying up, to remain for all time, a reminder to those who pass it by of their duty to God, the Sovereign, and to the nation. This Queen's colour has served its intended purpose. It has run its course as its age and appearance testify. It is now relieved in our Air Force's 100th year and is retired from use. Let us pray. Loving God, we pause to pray for those who served under this colour. We remember those who gave their life and paid the ultimate sacrifice during its time in use. May we honour and value their service and always appreciate their sacrifice. May we, as we step into our next century, play our part in upholding the values and traditions as they who went before us. We now lay this colour up, and may its replacement continue to serve as a reminder to us all of our duty to God, the Sovereign, and our nation. Amen.
Colour party, attention! Colour party, stand fast.
Parade! Standards! Peace!
The Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force will now take post on the parade. A royal salute will be given by the parade with the national anthem for Australia played as the Queen's colour is slow marched into position. Members in uniform are reminded to salute for the national anthem, and gentlemen in civilian attire are to remove their headdress. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand?
Parade! Attention! Parade! Shoulder! Arms! March on, the Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force. Parade, Royal salutes, presents, arms.
Colour escorts will prepare to receive the Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force. Royal salute, present, arms.
Colour party, attention! Colour party, a bow, turn. Colour party by the centre, slow.
Party a bow. Turn.
Parade. Parade. Order. Arms.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. The parade will now prepare to give 3 cheers for Her Majesty, the Queen, Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia.
Parade. 3 cheers to Her Most Gracious Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Australia. Parade. Remove. Headdress. Hip hip. Parade. Hip hip. Parade. Hip hip. Parade. Parade. Replace. Parade! Standards! Peace!
Bird, stand, dot, ice.
Parade! Stand! Easy!
Unsling.
I would now like to invite His Excellency General, the Honourable David Hurley, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, to address the parade.
Well, good morning all, and a very warm welcome to Government House Yarralumla for this very special occasion in the life of the Australian Defence Force and, of course, in the Royal Australian Air Force. I begin by acknowledging that Yarralumla sits on the land of the Ngunnawal people, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and through Uncle Harry Ali today, to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who have served in our Royal Australian Air Force. Could I acknowledge the Honourable Darren Chester, Minister for Veterans Affairs and Minister for Defence Personnel, representing the Prime Minister, General Angus Campbell, Chief of the Defence Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfield, Chief of Air Force, to members of the Australian Defence Force, Royal Australian Air Force in particular, veterans and families, ladies and gentlemen. Again, a very warm welcome to Yarralumla on this historic and celebratory occasion in the life of the Royal Australian Air Force. Today is a celebration of 100 years dedication to the defence of Australia and its values and of service to its people. Moments ago, I was honoured to present the Royal Australian Air Force with a new Queen's colour, a symbol of the Sovereign's trust in this service. Indeed, when handing the colour to Flying Officer Kamara Munro, I stressed to him that the colour represented the important relationship between the Queen and her Defence Forces. And Her Majesty the Queen understands the importance of that relationship. In her letter to all members of the Royal Australian Air Force on this occasion, she wrote, "Throughout my reign, the Royal Australian Air Force has shown immense dedication to duty and has defended our freedom in many conflicts around the world. That is what Her Majesty has observed the past performance, and I have no doubt that is what she expects from the Royal Australian Air Force into the future. But building for the future can only be successful if that building occurs on high-quality foundations. To echo the Chief of Air Force from his address at yesterday's Remembrance Service, it is the people, not the equipment, that have built the Royal Australian Air Force. 100 years appears to many of us as a very long time, and the formation of the Royal Australian Air Force a distant historical event. But Linda and I have been fortunate in recent days to meet 2 men who were alive when the formation of the Royal Australian Air Force occurred, and both of them who served in the Royal Australian Air Force. At RAF Base East Sale last week, we celebrated Bruce Robertson's 101st birthday. Bruce served as a wireless operator in 30 Squadron in Papua New Guinea in World War II. And today, just prior to this parade, I presented John Coburn, a telegraphist in World War II, with his Australian Service Medal. John, who is with us in the audience today, turns 100 today. John, congratulations. And this site for the parade today, Yarralumla, shares a slice of that history of the Air Force's people. On the 4th of April 1941, 2 aircraft from No. 4 Squadron based here in Canberra collided above Yarralumla. The pilots, Barry Cox and Rupert Baster, parachuted safely to ground. Unfortunately, Corporal William Ramsey was killed in that accident. The Governor-General of the day, Lord Gowrie, and the Acting Prime Minister, Arthur Fadden, were here meeting and ran to the assistance of Rupert Baster. Cox joined No. 75 Squadron and became one of Jackson's few in the defence of Port Moresby. Baster joined No. 3 Squadron and fought in the Middle East. Tragically, both were killed in action in service in World War II. It is the Bruces, the Johns, the Amandas, the Elizabeths, the Barrys, the Ruperts, and today a myriad of names from around the globe who have enabled the Royal Australian Air Force to reach the heights of service that it has achieved. The Air Force motto for 2021 is then, now, always. Over the last century, during times of war and in more recent conflicts, the Royal Australian Air Force has demonstrated its capability, adaptability and reliability in helping to keep us safe and preserving our national interests both here and overseas. The Royal Australian Air Force's story today, in the now, is equally compelling. While much of the Royal Australian Air Force work is undertaken on bases and in defence precincts where personnel are by and large out of public view, there is no mistaking the reassuring presence of the Royal Australian Air Force in times of disaster. A fine example of this capability was splashed across our television screens during the 2020 bushfires. Iconic images of military transport aircraft trying to land in zero visibility conditions in Malakuta and the subsequent evacuation of local residents is a reminder of the Royal Australian Air Force's responsiveness to disasters and a willingness of members to accept personal risk. We have seen further examples of that service over the past couple of weeks during the flood emergency in New South Wales and Queensland. These historic and contemporary examples of service should give us enormous confidence in the capability of the Royal Australian Air Force to be there for Australia and Australians into the future, the always. From a personal perspective, having worked alongside the Royal Australian Air Force and its people for over 40 years, I can vouch for its professionalism, its drive, its pride in service and pride in outcomes, and I have every confidence in our Air Force of the future. The same three words, then, now and always, can also be used to describe the support provided by the loved ones of our service personnel. I say to those families, thank you for the love, support and encouragement you have provided. You are as much a part of today's celebrations as those who serve in uniform. And in conclusion, I congratulate all on parade today, a magnificent parade, and thank all who arranged the event. And finally, congratulations on behalf of all Australians to all current and past members of the Royal Australian Air Force for your magnificent achievements over the last century. Per ardua ad astra.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, will now address the parade.
Darura Nuna, Darura Nunawal, Yangu Nala Wirri, Duni Manyan, Nunawal Wari, Duura Wari. This is Ngunnawal country. Today we meet on Ngunnawal country. I acknowledge the Ngunnawal people, traditional custodians of the land that we are celebrating and commemorating today, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are here with us today. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Royal Australian Air Force. Since the earliest times, warriors have carried standards or flags as a distinguishing mark and to serve as a rallying point during battle. Although they are no longer carried into combat, all the colours of the Australian Defence Force hold a revered position of honour. They are the embodiment of our service traditions, our achievements and our history. Each member of the Air Force family who has served with courage, respect, integrity and excellence has added to the meaning and the esteem of the Air Force's colour. On the Royal Australian Air Force's 100th birthday, this new colour that Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II bestows upon us will continue to represent the dedication and the sacrifice made to assure Australia's security. But let it also lay a marker for the Air Force that we are today and will be into the future. In the finest traditions of our forebears, I'm proud to say that the Air Force represented by our new colour today is ready to meet any emerging challenges our nation encounters. Our Air Force has served Australia proudly for 100 years and will continue to do so. The Air Force's story over the last century has been brought to life by the dedication and the courage of its people and the support to our nation as they have offered that to us. This will not change as we enter our second century. Our people represent the gender, cultural and ethnic diversity of our nation, bound together through common values and common cause for a truly wholesome purpose. The diversity and courage of the Australian people will be reflected by and through your Air Force. Not only is it right that our ranks are representative of our social diversity, but we are also stronger for it. Put simply, our Air Force will outthink, outcreate and outperform any challenges our country faces. Australia, our nation, and the land, sea and skies that we call home is a unique, prosperous and ancient place. It is a nation, a community and a way of life worth protecting and fighting for if needed. All who proudly serve in Air Force carry a deep sense of duty to our nation and will serve to safeguard its future for the generations that will follow us. This is the pledge that we make to the Australian people. Then, now, always.
Thank you, sir. The colour bearer for the laid-up Queen's colour will now seek permission from the reviewing officer to march off the retired colour.
Sling up.
Sir, I seek your permission to march up off the laid-off colour. Colour party, take post.
The laid-up colour will now be marched off to the playing of Auld Lang Syne. Members in uniform.
Attention!
Bird, a turn, shut.
Parade, shoulder, arms.
Colour party, by the centre, Quick!
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to stand for the departure of the reviewing officer, His Excellency General, the Honourable David Hurley, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, and Her Excellency Mrs Linda Hurley. Members in uniform are required to salute for the Royal Salute, and gentlemen in civilian attire are to remove their headdress.
Parade! Royal salutes! Presents! Arms! Parade! Attention!
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the departure of the Minister for Veterans Affairs, the Minister for Defence Personnel, Minister Darren Chester.
Parade! General salutes! Presents! Arms! Parade! Attention!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Chief of Air Force, Air Marshal Mel Hupfeld, will now take up position on the dais, and the parade commander will request permission to march off all colours, standards and banners of the Royal Australian Air Force, followed by the march off of the escort squadron and the newly consecrated Queen's colour.
Colour parties will march off. Colour parties, right, turn.
The colours, standards and banners of the Royal Australian Air Force will now be marched off. Members in uniform are reminded to salute as the colours pass to your front, and gentlemen in civilian attire are to remove headdress. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand.
Escort squadron, general salutes, presents. Arms!
Colours of the Royal Australian Air Force! Quick!
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Escort Squadron, attention!
To conclude today's parade, the escort squadron and the Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force will be shortly marched off. Members in uniform are reminded to salute as the Queen's colour passes to their front, and gentlemen in civilian attire are to remove headdress. Would you please stand for the historic march off of the newly consecrated Queen's colours?
Escort Squadron, move to the right and column of route. Right, turn.
Colour party, a bow, turn. Colour party, take post.
Band by the centre. Escort Squadron by the left. Craig.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Centenary Parade has now concluded, and you've witnessed the historic laying up of the retired Queen's colour and the consecration and presentation of the new Queen's colour for the Royal Australian Air Force. You are now invited to turn your eyes skywards as we observe the time-honoured tradition of Air Forces conducting a flypast, serving to show respect and commemorate significant events such as Air Force anniversaries. This year, on the occasion of the centenary of the founding of the Royal Australian Air Force, we commemorate the more than 350,000 men and women who have served, and in particular the memory of the more than 11,100 Air Force members who died in the service of Australia. We honour their sacrifice and always remember that every one of them left behind both family and friends. We especially remember the 3,143 members who have no known grave but remain in our hearts and memories eternally. On behalf of the Chief of Air Force and the current serving members of the Royal Australian Air Force, thank you for coming today on this magnificent day. Good morning.
Thank you, Peter Overton, and we can see those historic warbirds starting the flypast that we're now going to enjoy for the next 40 minutes. I'm joined by commentator for the first part of the flypast, Peter Anderson, who is an expert on all the planes we're going to see. Good morning to you,
Good
Peter.
morning, Lisa.
We just saw those warbirds overhead. Who was at the top of that? They were from 100 Squadron, weren't they?
100 Squadron, representative of the Temora Aviation Museum and the Point Cook RAAF Museum, and led by a Lockheed Hudson bomber, the only one in the world.
What are we seeing there out the front?
Right out the front there now, we've got the Hudson. You can see that yellow Harvard, that's representative of the Empire Air Training Scheme, where a lot of Australian pilots trained in South Africa or Canada. We also have the CAC Wirraway, an advanced trainer, and the first mass-produced aircraft in Australia.
Is it the Hudson that this is the only one that's flying in the world? Is that
The only
correct?
one of only 7 survivors.
That's incredible. I mean, people can see these planes in museums, but gosh, it is so different to actually seeing them flying in the air.
Correct. To hear them, to smell them even when people go after they've been flying really is evocative.
So how many flypasts have you done in your time?
Quite a few.
You can't put a number on it?
No, I can't.
How does this one rate what you've seen so far?
This is so important because it's the Air Force's 100th anniversary. It is probably the most significant flypast that I will ever do, and I'm just so privileged to be here.
What have we got there that we're looking at?
Okay, now we have the World War II fighters. We have 2 Spitfires. We have the Silver Mustang there with the big shark mouth, and also a P-40. These aircraft were representative of the major fighters used by the RAAF during the war years.
Who's that? And is that the Spitfire at the front I can see?
Yes, we have 2 Spitfires there. 3 of the aircraft in this formation were operational. And we have 1 representing Bobby Gibbs in the Pacific and 1 that actually flew during the operations in Europe.
And they are how difficult to sort of get the logistics right. I've seen a few stressed people around here at the moment, actually.
No, the guys that are flying those aircraft are very, very highly experienced. They fly together all the time. Some of them are in aerobatic teams together and have been for many, many years. And they have been flying these warbird aircraft for many years as well.
Yeah, so do you know the pilots? Do you know who's up there?
Yes, I do. I know them all personally.
And are they regular pilots in their day jobs?
No, some of them. Doug Hamilton, for example, he is a earth-moving contractor and a kiwi fruit grower.
Oh, really?
Yes. He also has an aviation business at Wangaratta Airport.
And this is the hobby for him?
This is the hobby.
Oh, how exciting. What's that now?
Well, we have 2 up there now. This is from the Historical Aircraft Restoration Society. We have the helicopter, which is the Huey. That's representing Australia's service in Vietnam by both the Air Force with 9 Squadron and also with the Navy. The 135th Helicopter Attack Squadron was joined by Australian Navy pilots. We also have the Catalina up there, the World War II flying boat, the Black Cat, synonymous with operations throughout the Pacific Theatre.
Where were they all coming from today, Peter?
These aircraft are all coming from different bases, as are the RAAF aircraft.
So they weren't all taking off from the same airstrip?
Not all from the same airstrip.
And waiting around up there?
They have been taken to various holding positions,
right.
But generally speaking, they've all come from their own home airfields today.
So they take off from their own airstrips, but then I know that they were waiting for this ceremony, this very important ceremony, to conclude before they could then start the flypast.
That's correct.
So what, were we just racking and stacking them up there?
Very much so. We have Usher, who is in a wedge tail, 30,000 feet above us, and he is looking after everything as air boss. He's
Right, you
controlling
say
everything.
usher, and I think of the singer, but no.
No.
I
Usher
guess
is the call
usher
sign.
at a theatre, I suppose, as
Correct.
well. Right, so
Correct.
what is Usher doing?
He is controlling all of these aircraft, making sure that their time over the display is perfect, and we get to see all of these beautiful aircraft displaying now, representing Australia's Air Force history.
What are we seeing there now?
The beautiful DC-3. This is the workhorse of the RAAF during the war, the Biscuit Bomber, the Dakota, Goonie Bird. It had very many names, but it was an aircraft that performed a valiant role. I think Douglas MacArthur said if it wasn't for the DC-3 and the Jeep, we wouldn't have won the war.
I know when the Queen was out here, what was she flying on?
She was in the C-47 or the DC-3
She
as well.
was in the DC-3,
Yes.
and that was when we saw the last changeover of the colours.
That's correct.
Right, okay. So Usher has them all up there under control.
All under control, and he's guiding them all in. So we can see at the present time, we've got the DC-3 and the Caribou representing the use of the aircraft by 35 Squadron, particularly up in Vietnam, where they carried over 667,000 kilos of freight during their time in Vietnam.
So the Caribou was the first one we saw there?
The DC-3 followed
Right,
by
sorry.
the Caribou.
Right.
And now we have another Haas aircraft. We have the Lockheed Neptune, maritime reconnaissance and anti-surface warfare, anti-submarine warfare aircraft. Actually first flew before the end of the Second World War. And this aircraft is representative of the two squadrons that operated them here, numbers 10 and 11 Squadron.
Peter, I've got the right person here with me today.
Thank you.
What can we see there now?
Okay, that is the Lockheed Orion aircraft, which took over the same role as the Neptune, but a much more capable aircraft. It was actually designed out of the Lockheed Electra airliner.
Have we ever seen such a collection of aircraft for a flypast like this?
Not in recent years, certainly not. And the fact that we're combining civilian operated aircraft with military aircraft to show the RAAF history is extremely important.
Look, I'm a bit excited, I've got to tell you. I'm a bit of a plane fanatic, so I can imagine that you're feeling it as well, seeing those planes.
Most definitely.
What would they do about airspace? Because it's a pretty busy airport anyway, Canberra.
The airspace will be closed off for this particular operation. That would have taken many weeks to organise and coordinate between the civilian authorities and the military authorities, because you've got aircraft of very different performances, from the F-35 down to the Huey, for example, the one flown by Mick Haxall.
Yes, so if you're looking at the speed of those, you've got the Huey at what speed? I don't
90
know.
knots.
Yeah, and then you've got the F-35, which we'll see a little bit later, which does, what, 2,000 kilometres an hour or something?
It's Mach
on a slow day?
1.6, but today we'll only be seeing it at 330 knots.
So let's talk about the fast jets that we're going to be seeing. What are we expecting?
Well, we have three tranches of the fast jets. We have the F-35, which is coming in first, followed by the Super Hornet and the Growler, the electronic version. And we also have the Classic Hornets.
Yeah, so that's the F-35 we're seeing now.
Yes.
And of course, it's our newest addition to the Air Force. We don't have all of the F-35s.
No, we have about 33 in country of a total component of 72 aircraft that we're expecting.
And eventually it is meant to replace the Hornets, isn't it?
That's correct. And also it's taking over the role of the F-111.
Yeah, and speaking of Hornets, here's the Super Hornet. It's sticking around though, isn't it?
Most definitely. We have them flying with number 1 Squadron, and we also have the electronic version, the Growler, which is flying with number 6 Squadron. Super Hornets are a supersonic fighter aircraft as well as ground attack, and the Growler, the electronic version, it is an electronic attack aircraft designed to deny the enemy and disrupt their radar and communications.
Right. And now the Hornet. Now this is the one that's going to end up being retired eventually.
That's correct. It's being retired as we speak. The squadrons are all taking over the F-35. Number 75 Squadron operating the Hornets will be the last one to be replaced.
Right. And I think here they come, Peter. We're probably going to hear them. Look at them.
Absolutely magnificent. This is cutting edge. This is our 5th generation jet fighter, and it has incredible performance and incredible stats to go with it.
Now, the logistics behind this is pretty astounding, just trying to get this together, isn't it?
That's correct.
How long would they have been planning it?
Oh, this has been in planning for 2 years. As we see them flying through now, and certainly hear them.
People are going to get some great views around Canberra. If they're watching at home, they're also going to get some fantastic views because we have put cameras pretty much everywhere.
We've got them in the air, we've got them on the ground, all the way around the lake, and also up on Mount Ainslie.
So how long do they stay up in the air, do you know, with something like this, with a fly past?
Well, those aircraft actually came through earlier on with the arrival of the dignitaries, and they went to a hold, again controlled by our eye in the sky, the air boss.
And where are they holding at? What height level?
Well,
what
they're
altitude?
all at various altitudes.
What have we got here?
Here we have the Super Hornets and the Growlers. They are from numbers 1 and 6 Squadron. And they are operating in complementary roles. As I said, the Growler is the electronic attack aircraft, and it can speak with other aircraft that we have, such as the Poseidon later on, and also our Wedgetail. So this provides a huge air battlefield combat capability.
And they're just going to do the one sweep over, aren't they? As you say, they were there for the dignitaries before.
That's correct.
Yes. And then where do they return to?
These aircraft will be heading back up to Amberley Air Base up in Queensland.
So is Usher, as you call him, her, whoever it might be, up there at 30,000 feet ticking off the to-do list?
That's right. He is in total control of what's going on there. He can see everything because that Wedgetail has an incredible capability of tracking targets.
We hear them? Who are they? Right over top, casting shadows on us.
They are the Hornets, the classic Hornets that came into service in 1984-85.
And they're the ones that are going to be retired.
That's correct.
Yeah, replaced by the F-35s. I wondered how we'd go here noise-wise, but it's not too bad, Peter.
Not too bad. But
and you are an experienced fly-past commentator, so...
It's a beautiful, beautiful sight there. Those aircraft have served Australia well since, as I said, 1984-85. The classics, as they are referred to.
Could you have asked for better flying conditions today?
Not today. This is truly magnificent.
Yeah. And I bet you've probably been to a few fly-pasts that have seen a little more cloud, maybe even cancelled in the past?
Cloud on the ground and the seagulls walking.
Oh, and disappointment everywhere.
Most definitely, because people love to see these aircraft. They don't have very many opportunities to see them apart from sporadic Air Force air shows. But here today, it's a great example of the traditions of the RAAF and what has happened currently.
Okay, and what have we got coming up next? Do you remember?
We should have from memory.
You look to the skies.
I think we have the PC-21s.
We've got the King Air actually coming up in this batch as well.
In this particular tranche, yes.
Yeah.
This is a light transport aircraft or number 32 Squadron, but it can also be configured for a number of other operations.
I thought it was pretty much a civilian plane.
Yeah, it is, but it can be modified and is modified. It trains naval air warfare officers and specific RAAF personnel for operations with the P-8 Poseidon and also with the Super Hornets that we just saw.
Hang on, so you can be a pilot in a Super Hornet, but you get trained in a King Air?
No,
How does that work?
It's basically the operators of all the electronics, for the tracking of the aircraft, etc., etc.
I can see them emerging. We'll get a glimpse of them and see who's at the head of this tranche.
I think these will be the PC-21s.
The PC-21s, and they're the Roulettes, so we'll
Yeah,
see
well,
them.
the Roulettes fly those aircraft, but it's mostly used for training, but at 1 and 2 flying training schools.
Pretty much everyone who joins the Air Force ends up in a PC-21 at some stage,
Correct,
don't they?
correct.
Yeah.
And these aircraft are in the colours of Number 4 Squadron that operates for forward air control training. One of them is also marked as Aircraft Research and Development Unit from Edinburgh RAAF base.
No learner drivers up there, though, at the moment.
Not today, no.
No, I mean, well, I guess there would have been a lot of competition for people to decide who was going to take part in a fly past.
I think there would have been a lot of people
magnitude.
vying for this, particularly the significance of the 100th anniversary fly past.
Yeah. And how long would they have been planning the fly past for?
Oh, many, many months. There we see the, on screen we have the PC-21s there in the grey markings. You might be able to pick out the shark mouth on the nose for its more aggressive than training role.
And I guess those markings that we see on the various planes, they've changed over the years, especially on those older ones that we saw first up, those warbirds.
Well, we have the camouflage from World War II, and obviously things have changed a lot. Aircraft have now gone to low visibility markings to ensure that when they can be seen, and it's not a radar, that it is very difficult to spot them.
Yeah. And those historic warbirds, the paint job on them, that's all volunteers who are looking after those now, isn't it?
That's correct. That is with 100 Squadron, RAAF, formed specifically to commemorate this year.
What have we got here, Peter?
These are the 32 Squadron King Airs. Yep, and these are the ones that are used for a lot of transport, and as we said, training naval air warfare officers and RAAF systems operators, as well as used for protection of maritime areas and zones of influence around the Pacific nations.
And I mean, there's a lot of King Airs flying in Australia, aren't there?
There are, but these are done by the professionals.
They're the C-27s?
C-27 Spartan is the next one you can hear overhead right now.
Okay.
We should have it up on
we'll
screen
have it
soon.
Yeah. And so tell me about the Spartans.
These aircraft fulfill a role between the Chinook helicopter, the heavy lift helicopter, and the C-130J. They are, you can't say that they are the replacement for the Caribou because they do far more than the Caribou ever did. And they can land at probably twice as many airfields as the Hercules, not only for air combat operations, tactical area, but also for humanitarian.
And you know what? The Hercules, I'm going to talk to someone who really knows something about the Hercules, and that is Squadron Leader. Diane, can you hear me? Because I think you're up there above me. How's it looking?
Hi Lisa, I can hear you loud and clear. Yes, we're coming in past Black Mountain right now. I'm in the aircraft to the right of lead. We've got the other aircraft to my left. Coming over the lake now, past River Dam. Amazing views out here today. Great conditions for flying and really awesome experience.
We've been talking about the Hercules. Tell me, why do you love it so much and how long have you been flying it?
So I've been flying as a pilot on C-130s since 2010. Before that I was a navigator on C-130H, so I've been in the community for quite a while. Such a variety of roles that we have, such an adventure every day, and there's just so much that we do within our community, within our region and around the world. So every day is an adventure. I love it.
How special is it to be involved in this particular fly past? And I've got to tell you, it's pretty special for me, the fact that I'm able to speak to you while you're flying over me.
Yeah, look, it's an absolute privilege. We've all been speaking about it just in the preparation for the form. To actually find a formation is great fun in itself, but to do it for such a special occasion and to be part of the 100th anniversary and just all the commemorative events is brilliant.
Diane Bell, congratulations, and please tell everyone up there to enjoy themselves today. It's a very special day, but have some fun. Thank you.
Thanks so
okay,
much,
we've got the heavies coming in, I understand. So tell us about them.
Well, we have a number of different aircraft here. These are 3 P-8 Poseidons together with one of the 2 remaining Orions in the inventory. The P-8, the Poseidon, actually took over from the Orion as Australia's maritime reconnaissance aircraft. It's not only maritime, but it's also overland. It has an incredible capability, anti-submarine warfare and anti-surface warfare. It's basically a 737 highly modified with systems and equipment, and it'll be the only 737 that you see that has a bomb bay.
That has a what?
A bomb bay.
Peter, I don't know where to look. I want to look up. I want to look at the monitor. I'm looking at you. What a day.
It's an incredible fly past today. The P-8's a fantastic aircraft. It is leading edge technology for the RAAF. It has 6 underwing hardpoints. It can also carry various stores for a particular mission. And the aircraft can also carry a Mark 54 torpedo that can be modified and dropped from 30,000 feet for anti-submarine or anti-surface warfare.
So many of the aircraft today that we're seeing have been used as much in peace as in war, though, haven't they?
Most definitely. We saw the C-27s earlier on. There's an incredible footage of one of them flying in the bushfires where all you can see are the windscreen. It is all red. That's all you can see.
We've got the E7 coming up.
The Wedgetail.
The Wedgetail.
Yep,
this is the odd-looking one. I'm sorry.
No,
Only its mother could love it, surely.
With the surfboard on top, that electronically scanned radar array.
Doing a very important job, I know.
Extremely
so tell me
important.
about it.
This is cutting edge, and this was actually designed to an Australian specification, and it's going to be, I think, the airborne early warning and control aircraft of choice, not only for Australia, but many other nations are looking into the purchase of the aircraft.
Where's it made? What's its...
It's Boeing. It is, again, another 737. These aircraft are operated by number 2 Squadron based up at Williamtown in New South Wales.
I mean, look, you know, you take off the bits of extra special added-ons and you paint it a different colour and you've got a commercial airline.
That's correct. This aircraft is capable of tracking 180 targets at once.
What are these C-17s, are they, Peter?
Well, we're being drowned out now by the Globemaster, which is our heavy lift aircraft. This is our strategic transport, and it's capable of carrying up to 90 tonnes of payload.
So how does something so big actually get by with a pretty short runway? That's always amazed me.
It is designed into it. It can fly into, in the old money, the 3,600-foot runway. It has reverse thrusts on those 4 engines, and each one of those engines develops about 40,000 pounds of thrust.
Where have they been used? What have we
They have been used all over the world, not only for support of the Australian Defence Force, but also in disaster relief in New Zealand, in Japan, and for the tsunami.
Okay, that's the KC-30A refuelling. I'm joined now by Amy Heal from the Roulettes, but you've actually flown one of those as well, Amy.
Yes, I have, and I actually know all 4 of the pilots that are up there today flying this
let's give
mission.
them a shout out then.
Definitely.
Who's up there?
So in the first aircraft, we had Nick Barnes and Dirk Petrusma. In the second aircraft, we had Jamie Miner and we had Mike Wierenski, who's actually a US pilot that's flying with us here in Australia.
Right, we've allowed the Americans in
Yeah,
to
we
enjoy
have,
our
we
day.
have.
Okay, good for the Allies. And that tanker has just really changed how we've been able to operate as an Air Force, hasn't it?
Yeah, so we refer to it as a force multiplier. It allows us to take our aircraft a lot further than we would usually be able to. This aircraft, so I was given a really fun fact yesterday.
I love fun facts, go for
This
it.
aircraft can refuel 1,700 vehicles from the amount of fuel they're holding.
Okay.
So a lot of fuel on board.
And where have you flown? Have you actually flown it, or you've been second command, or?
No, I've actually captained this aircraft as well. So I was based up at RAF Base RAF Base Amberley, where this aircraft is, and I was posted up there for about 5 years. So these 2 aircraft and a lot of the aircraft you see today have actually come down from Amberley will fly past and they will go home. They won't actually land anywhere because the KC-30 is able to provide them the fuel to get home.
I've been wondering and was talking to Peter just about the logistics behind something like this. It's incredible thinking about the number of aircraft in the air, more than 60. The ones we are now very excitedly waiting for are the Roulettes.
Yes. The
What are we going to see
PC-21s.
today?
Well, I'm very excited. This is the aircraft I fly. It's the PC-21. It's our newest, most advanced trainer, and this is what we teach all Air Force, Army and Navy pilots to learn. So this is not only an awesome aircraft that we see doing roulette displays, but we actually send, this is the first aircraft that our student pilots go solo in, and it's also the first aircraft they learn to fly.
Yeah, we were talking about that. A lot of people do learn to fly in this aircraft. We're going to go live to the Roulettes now. They're above us, we understand. Look at them. How come we've got you on the ground and you're not up there?
Oh, well, I've got to be here to tell you all about it. How am I meant to talk to everyone from up in the sky? So what you're seeing now is the formation coming in overhead, and they'll be pulling up into a loop very soon. And as they go over the top of the loop, you'll see their formation change. So keep an eye out for that.
How hard is it to stay in formation?
Well, each of the pilots isn't actually looking at their instruments right now. They're actually looking at the aircraft in front, and they're using the cues from Roulette leader, who's Squadron Leader Jamie Braden, and he's calling the commands as they change formation. So there you go. You see them go from eagle to wedge formation over the top.
How long does it take you to train to feel confident about taking part in something like this?
So there's a lot of training that goes into a workup like this. Each of our pilots that are flying today are flying instructors, so they're some of the most senior members of our CFS, which is our Central Flying School.
And the Roulettes are going to give us this display for the next 10 minutes or so, which makes me feel pretty lucky because we've got a great view of it all. But is that how long the displays normally go, or is this a special one for the 100th anniversary?
No, this is a normal display that we will do. They're usually around 14 minutes, and it's a display of formation and aerobatic manoeuvres. So these aerobatic manoeuvres and the formation positions are taught to all military pilots, but obviously not so close to the ground and not so close to one another. So as you can see now, they're pulling up into a wing over, and then they'll come back over the crowd line again, and I hope there's lots of people down there having a good view of this from the ground.
Well, I bet they are, because they're, we've got cameras up on Mount Ainslie, and people in Canberra certainly had the opportunity to line Lake Burley Griffin. What are you wearing when you're on board?
So we wear a flying suit, and over that we wear what's called a G suit. So what that is, it's like a second pair of pants that we wear, and it's full of bladders, and that plugs into the aircraft, and as we pull G over the top, like now, those pants are filling up with air, and what that does is it helps us be able to withstand a higher G. So during the manoeuvres today...
So your body's being squeezed, as it were, by the outfit.
Your body's being squeezed, and also you're squeezing your muscles against that to help keep the blood in your head.
Keeping blood in your head is probably a good idea when you're up there. Upside down?
Definitely. So these pilots today, while they're up flying, the aircraft can actually sustain up to 8G, but during today's display it will be about 4 to 5G.
Right, 8G. Have you done 8G?
No. And I think most of our manoeuvres work around 6G, yes, but 8G is a lot. And usually it's just instantaneous type G.
Is it bad form to ask you if you've ever been sick?
No. I think every pilot in their career at some point has felt a little bit ill. And it's one of those things that we get conditioned for. We do it all the time, and even after Christmas holidays, you haven't flown for a while, you come back and you can feel a bit queasy when you go up, but you do it more and more and you get used to it.
Oh, so too much Christmas pudding can put you out of shape. Roulette pilots suffer the same thing that the rest of us do. Who knew?
So now what we're seeing is the formation move to swift. What they'll do now is they'll turn around and come back from the right and across the crowd centre, and they'll move into a position called leader's benefit. This is actually quite a challenging manoeuvre because the pilots 2 to 6 actually have to turn their heads quite substantially to keep in line in position. So here they come round now. And
So you're telling me that they're not actually looking at their instruments, they are looking at the plane next to them.
They are actually turning their head as far as they can to see the person next to them to make sure they're in position and directly in line with one another as they go past.
How old were you when you started flying?
I was 16 when I went out to my local aero club, and I had fantastic parents that were able to drive me out there before school and learn to fly.
Because you couldn't drive yourself?
No, I couldn't drive myself. And I've just been so lucky to be able to have a fantastic career in Air Force, to be able to fly something like a KC-30 and then come back and fly the PC-21.
Yeah.
It is such a fun aircraft to fly.
Is it something you always wanted to do as a child?
Yeah, it is. And it's just amazing that Air Force has been able to give me that opportunity to fulfill my dream.
And Amy, you and I discovered a lovely connection in the process of getting to know each other for this wonderfully significant ceremony and fly past today, and that is that my father served in World War II in number 1 wireless unit.
Yes.
And your granddad?
Yes, he served in number 3 wireless unit. So we actually were looking out at some pictures yesterday. And now just looking at the roulettes, you're seeing them pull over to another loop. What will happen now is they come back down Roulette 5 and 6, who are Flight Lieutenant Lockie Hazeldine and Flight Lieutenant Mark Kritz. They will break off the formation and they will get ready for their special manoeuvre, so we'll have to keep watching for that. Then once that happens, we'll have another manoeuvre that comes back along the crowd line, and then we'll see the formation rejoin. So we saw them move from 6-pack and now they're in twin formation.
And those wireless units we were talking about, Amy, were intercepting the Japanese Kana messages. It does go to show that this is not all about who's up in the air today. This is honouring so many other people on the ground, the 350,000 people who have served in this uniform since the Australian Air Force's foundation.
Yeah, and I think we need to look back at the history and what people have given up to be able to serve in the Air Force. And I'm here today because I was inspired by my grandfather, and I think a lot of people feel the same. And what we'll see now is we'll see Roulette 5 and 6 conduct the mirror. So we're seeing the 4 aircraft now come round. They'll be coming round for the corkscrew very soon. But what we see in the mirror, here we go, is the aircraft are within 3 metres of one another. We have Roulette 5, who's actually inverted on top of Roulette 6. So this is the point where we really hope Lockie did his straps up tight, because otherwise he's hanging there upside down in his aircraft. And there's just nothing like seeing the world upside down. I can't explain it. It's a whole body experience.
There are people out there shaking their heads at you right now, Amy, but I love your enthusiasm and passion for it.
So now we're seeing the corkscrew. So we've got Roulette leader, Squadron Leader Jamie Braden, who is at the front. He's also inverted. And then we have Roulette 4, Flight Lieutenant Ben Hepworth, who's actually conducting barrel rolls around the formation. We've also got there Roulette 2 and 3. Roulette 2 is Flight Lieutenant Nathan Stankovicius, and Roulette 3 is Flight Lieutenant Daniel Barclay. So many hours of practice have gone in to making this display as slick as it can be.
How many women are in the roulettes?
There's just me, I'm afraid, but
we'll have to change that,
oh,
surely.
We're totally changing that. It's so great to see so many girls coming through and learning to fly the PC-21 in all 3 services.
You've noticed it, have you?
I have.
Even in the time you've been with the RAAF?
Yeah, because when I went through course there, I was the only one, but now we're seeing a lot more girls come through. And that's one of the things that's really important to me, is to promote how it's such a great job, and that young girls, you can do it. Just go out there and give it a go.
With the rehearsals for these, the training, do you do a bit of the sequence and then sort of revise it, or do you, when you do the training, you do the whole thing, the 12 minutes or 14 minutes?
No, we learn each manoeuvre, so that it's definitely a gradual process. So you'll learn to do formation, what we refer to as formation aerobatics. So that's aerobatics where it may be just 2 of you, but you do that, you learn that, and then you learn to do that close to the ground, and then you put 2 more aircraft in there, and you learn another piece, and it gets put together like that.
But when you first join the Roulettes, it's just you sort of getting a feel for it, that flying upside down business that you love so much.
So all military pilots learn to fly aerobatics, so flying upside down, and formation. Aerobatics and formation, they're a core military skill for a military aviator.
So how many hours are we talking about with training?
Oh, that's a hard question now. You got to remember, I flew the PC-9 when I did my training, so now I've come back to fly the PC-21, so it's a little bit different.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but is this the first time the Roulettes have flown this particular aircraft over Canberra in a flypast? Because this is the new aircraft, isn't it? That's only been with us for, what, a couple of years?
Yeah, so 2019 we started doing that. So we were meant to do Skyfire last year here in Canberra, but unfortunately due to COVID we weren't able to. And we just missed the rollbacks. They look so fantastic. I hope people down there had their cameras ready, getting awesome photos of that one.
Oh, well, the good thing is we're cutting up a highlights package so everyone can watch this over and over again. No moment is going to be missed. Don't you worry, Amy.
So now we have the formation pulling up, and they'll be doing a wing over and then into a barrel roll. And this is I love the look of this manoeuvre as the formation pull up into that. So we'll just keep watching, and we'll see that happen very soon. So the smoke you see coming from the aircraft is actually a mixture of oil and fuel. Not only does it look really impressive for the formation, but it also helps with safety. It enables each member of the formation to be able to spot each other very quickly.
I've been worried, though, in the past watching the Roulettes that smoke can then create a blind spot for the pilots if they're following behind some smoke.
Yeah, no, it's very choreographed, and Roulette leader tells each member when to turn their smoke on and when to turn it off. So here you go with the barrel roll. So these aircraft can travel up to 685 kilometres an hour or 370 knots. During today's display, some of the flypasts were down to 200 feet and the aerobatic manoeuvres 500 feet. All the positioning and formations are within 3 metres from one another, and it's all hand-flown, no autopilots today.
And is that 3 metres at the same altitude we're talking about?
Yes.
That is incredible, Amy.
And if you saw pictures from looking from one aircraft to the other, you'd just see the face looking at you because they're using the cues off the aircraft in front just to make sure they're in position.
So you can really see the whites of their eyes.
Oh, yeah. Well, not quite because you've got your visors down. So, and now we're getting ready for the quarter clover. So the quarter clover will lead into the cascade, which will be the final manoeuvre. It's awesome and it will look fantastic down there near the lake.
How often are you doing displays and flypasts these days? I mean, taking 2020 out of the equation.
Every couple of weeks we're out and about doing different displays and formations, and people can actually request a roulette display. They just need to go onto the Air Force website and look up roulettes, and there's a form they can fill out and put in their request to Air Force to have us come out to their big event, whatever that may be.
Right, okay, it's my sister's 50th birthday later this year. Can I request the roulettes?
Maybe not, Lisa, maybe not that type of event, but definitely community groups and local towns and things like that. If they're having some big festival or something, put your application in and it will be Air Force. Here we go, to work out what we attend. There we go, the cascade ending. So now what will happen is roulette leader will call each member back into the formation and they will head back over to Canberra Airport and land back in. So they'll probably be on the ground before we're even off air.
That is terrific. Where are they heading back to?
So they'll be landing here in Canberra. My aircraft's still parked out there, so it'll be there waiting for its mates to come back. So they will land, and we're staying the night again tonight, so we get to enjoy the celebrations.
Amy Hill, great to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, what a way to close what has been an amazing and moving commemoration of the Royal Australian Air Force. Congratulations to all involved in today's parade and air display, and my thanks to Amy and Peter for their brilliant commentary which brought it all to life for us. I want to thank you all for joining us today. It has been quite an occasion. You'll be able to see highlights on the ABC. Thank you to all those who serve in the Royal Australian Air Force.